Hi, thanks so much for joining me. So, my favorite book characters are introverts, shy, loners, because I relate to that myself. I relate to being an introvert. I am an INFJ. I am shy and I'm a little bit of a loner, and I can be kind of okay with conversation and come off as somewhat approachable and things like that, but then I can also be kind of socially awkward, because I have social anxiety. So I kind of fit into every category. I just want to say at the beginning, kind of like as a disclaimer, this is my opinion, and I realize that some even of the most famous book protagonists, people don't agree on if they're like an introvert or an extrovert, or if they're shy or if they're a loner. So I just want to say that I do realize that you can be an introvert and not be shy, and you can also be shy for many different reasons. And I'm not gonna, I don't know, I think it's kind of fun to kind of dissect characters on things like that, and I will talk about that a little bit in this video. So I think that like you can be genetically, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a psychologist, but just my opinion from my own experience, I think that you can be shy like genetically, and kind of like there's this whole nature versus nurture thing, right? But then I think you can also have like things happen to you in your life, environmental things where like nurture, where you can kind of isolate and be shy because of those things like trauma. And a lot of these characters kind of have those traits somewhat, but yeah. So I want to talk about like I said, or you can be all of it, like I am, like because I like, to me it's like I was shy from pretty much when I was a toddler, and then I've always been shy my whole life. But I'm also an introvert. I'm also socially awkward. I'm also kind of a loner. I prefer very small group settings, and I tend to read characters who are like me. I tend to enjoy them a little bit more, because I guess not that I don't read books with extroverts and things like that, but of course I do. But I found that a lot of my favorite books are introverts. So I want to share my thoughts with you guys in case you like reading about introverts and kind of quiet. And I'm going to talk about where I think they fit. The character fits in that category. So this is Jane Eyre. Like, she is by Charlotte Bronte. She is like, that's like the first book I wrote down when I was coming up with this list. So Jane is shy. In my opinion, she's also an introvert. She also has like trauma. She's an orphan. She wasn't really treated that well by people in her family. And so I think she kind of isolated from people because of that. So whether or not she was like, born that way, or she kind of developed to be that way towards the world because of how she was treated, regardless, like she definitely is shy and introverted. And so yeah, so I really connect with her as a character, and it just so happens that she's one of the biggest introverts I've ever read, and kind of, like I said, shy. And I love that about her. She also has like a lot of integrity, and she's not afraid to speak up for herself when she needs to, but otherwise she kind of keeps quiet. You could also make the argument that since she's a governess, like she becomes a governess, and like she kind of wants to like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It's like kind of like, since she's living in someone else's house, you could also say that maybe her occupation kind of influenced her behavior, because she didn't want to kind of come across as kind of loud or like overstep her boundaries or something like that. But I think even if she wasn't a governess, like she would still be, because even like when she was in school, it's like a very much coming of age story. She was very much like kind of better with one, like she was drawn to like being with a conversation like one-on-one, and kind of like was just quiet into herself. And yeah, so I think she's like a really good example of an introvert in literature, and she's pretty much my favorite character. So second is, I wrote Kaya from Where the Crawdads Sing. So Kaya is another one of my favorite characters. This was like my favorite book that I read, I believe last year. And about Delia, sorry, I know it's Delia or Delia Owens. But yeah, so Kaya, I don't know, I think Kaya is kind of similar to Jane in the way that she kind of becomes, she's like abandoned, and well, Jane's an orphan, but Kaya, she becomes like in a situation where she's abandoned, and the only life she really has and knows is like nature and the marsh. And she just is very isolated because just of how she was kind of born isolated. She kind of, in the house she lives in and stuff like that. But then she kind of just embraces that because she's shy. And she also, I think, is 100% an introvert. Like she really likes her, like, nature, like she does all these like nature studies with observing birds and nature, and like she's like kind of a scientist, a naturalist, a scientist, and she really enjoys doing stuff like that. And she also is like grew up like it's a very rural setting, very poor on the marsh, and she kind of like doesn't really have the opportunities that a lot of people have. So you could kind of say that her circumstances added to her probably her isolation, her shyness. And she's so like the marsh was like her best friend, and that just is who she is. And she also has so much integrity, and yeah, she's also like an orphan, basically, kind of. Yeah, I mean, and so I don't want to give too much away. It's like I would call it like, I could see this book being like a modern classic. I know it's like contemporary fiction and it didn't come out long ago, but I think it's such a well-written novel that I can see people still reading this so far in the future. So, but yeah, so some of my favorite books, and I definitely think Kaya is an introvert. Now, this one I kind of debated back and forth on how I was going to word this, but I really did decide that Hugo, The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. So this is basically a illustrated middle grade book. It's so heavy in illustrations. It's gorgeous. You have to read it if you haven't read it, even though it's like written for kids. I think it's very sophisticated. There's also, I also wanted to say that I love the movies too. I didn't want to forget that. I really love the Jane Eyre movie. The one, it's one of the newer ones with like Mia. Her name's like Mia. I forgot. I'll link it in the description. But Where the Crawdads Sing, also I really love the movie. And then Hugo, the movie, is phenomenal. It's directed by Martin Scorsese. And so Hugo is also an orphan. And he's very shy. He's very introverted. He also has a lack of opportunity to meet other people. So I think that, again, his circumstances definitely added to the fact of him being kind of isolated and things like that. Because, like, he's definitely drawn to want to have connections and relationships with people and stuff like that. And so is Kaya, and so is Jane, but just on a very small scale. Like, I don't see any of them going to some, like, event or party where they feel like they were being themselves. Like, they just seem like they would really prefer the company, like a small group, one-on-one, things like that. So I definitely see Hugo as an introvert. I really do. And I do also think he's shy. And he also has like trauma, with like his situation, and he kind of has to grow up really fast. And, with that said, it's such an interesting novel, and I really enjoy him as a character. So, Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. So this one, Eleanor has a lot of trauma, and Eleanor falls more into the category that I told you guys I was kind of including, which is more of like a loner. I don't necessarily know that she's an introvert or that she's shy. I think she's very socially awkward and from the trauma. And so she falls into that loner category because she doesn't really have this large family. and like a lot of friends, and she doesn't really have the best like history, like knowing how to interact with people, because she really, the way she was raised and things like that. So like you understand why she is the way she is. And like I would say, yeah, like I wouldn't say she's introvert, but I'd say she's a loner. And I'm also, like I said, I'm including like like socially awkward from the trauma. She's not totally shy. She's actually very blunt, and she doesn't like have issue like telling someone, like talking to strangers and things like that. But it's always kind of like a very awkward interaction. And that's what I love about her. She's very raw, and she's one of my favorite characters I've read recently. And I can't wait. I heard there's going to be a movie. But yeah. Okay. So one of my other favorite, I keep saying this over and over, you guys, because like these are all my favorite books. The ones with like introverts, shy, loners. The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. So Theo is the protagonist, and I definitely see him as an introvert. He's very quiet. He's very like he keeps himself. He's very, that's what I'm looking for. He also has trauma and a lot of things that he's having to overcome and things like that. And I don't know if that impacted the way he is when you first meet him, versus like, because you kind of meet him when he's kind of like middle grade age. It's also a very like much a coming of age novel. It's one of the most, oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite novels that I've ever read, like top 5. And so anyway, so the Goldfinch, he is, like I said, he's very much quiet personality, shy, introverted. I kind of get the vibe that if I were to guess, I would think he was like genetically shy. His early childhood didn't really have like a lot of trauma in it, but he definitely has some traumatic things that happened to him when you first start to read the book that happened kind of quickly. And I don't want to say it to give too much away or anything like that, but like it's like I said, like I just think it's who he is, because when you have the scenes of him and his mother, like I get the vibe that she's kind of like him, like kind of like quiet, more introverted, soft-spoken, and he doesn't like he makes like friends, but he's never like the type to like be in large groups, and like he just the way he interacts with the world, like in my opinion, he's just very much introverted, like very quiet. And I do think he's shy. I really do. And he's one of my favorite characters of all time. Very sweet, kind, and you can also be very kind and sweet as an extrovert. But I'm just trying to think of ways to describe him as an introvert, but because he just happens to also be very kind. So the next one is The Language of Flowers. And I'm probably going to ruin her name. So I'm going to say Vanessa, Diffenbaugh. So there's also kind of a theme, if you guys noticed in my favorite books and in this video, of orphans. So this book is also about an orphan who spent her life, her name's Victoria, in foster care. So her only connection to the world is through flowers and their meanings. So she is 100% affected by trauma, and I don't necessarily think she's an introvert, but I think she's kind of a loner. She's a loner. I would say she is shy, but like it's hard to say whether she's more introverted or extroverted, but I would say that because she's shy and because she's kind of a loner, that's why I put the book in this video. So she's very much a loner because of her circumstances. That I can say 100%. She definitely went through a lot, and so I can see why she avoids people. I can see why she is the way she is, and I very much understand it. And so this book was really just a beautiful read. And then it's also kind of a coming of age. You meet her when she's like aging out of the foster care system, but then it goes back and forth to some of the things that happened to her when she was in foster care and things like that. And it weaves a very interesting past and present, which some books I don't like when they do that, but I think this writer is very talented and she did it very well. of weaving the past and present. And you really understand why she is the way she is, because of her trauma and because of, so you totally get why she kind of wants to avoid people, and relationships are scary for her. And, the fear that comes with that, like with the social anxiety aspect of, like just feeling uneasy and anxious around people and things like that. Like I totally get it. And yeah. Okay. So another middle grade novel is Sarah Pennypacker's Here in the Real World. So the main character, his name is Ware, and he is 100% an introvert. I believe it's even said in like book reviews and things like that he's an introvert. And so basically this is like, it takes place over the summer where his parents want him to go to summer camp, and he does not want to go because he really does not want to be in like a group with other kids. So he'd rather kind of do his own thing. And so you kind of learn what he does, which he finds. Okay, it says on the back, he finds a like half demolished church that's abandoned next to the camp, and he kind of wants to make it like a castle. And he meets this girl that wants to do like plant like a garden in the same area and things like that, and they kind of work together. And so yeah, so it's just like a very kind of like slow, like kind of character piece, kind of based, like I said, it takes place a short period of time. And he's not an orphan or anything, like he has parents, but he just doesn't, you don't really know. I think it's just his personality. Like the thing is, this is like, it's just genetic. Like that's who he is. He just rather be in small groups or one-on-one. He just does not prefer the company of large groups, just like me. And whether it's overstimulating or whether he just feels intimidated because some of the kids are mean, which I've had that too. Like, it's like sometimes he wanted to spend time alone. Sometimes he needed to. If that made him a disappointing son, well, couldn't his parents accept their bad luck having a disappointing son? Then he is also like good one-on-one. And I've been like that my whole life. Like I always played good when I was a kid. I always played well with like one-on-one. And then a lot of times when like a third kid was like added to our group, there was always like ended up being like stress or like turmoil for me. I don't know, maybe it's just like, but like, and then large groups are just like a nightmare for me. They always have been ever since I was a little kid. Like, just being like shy, you always feel like everyone's looking at you, things like that. So I really love this book. And then the next book is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. So the narrator in this book, the protagonist, who is never named, which I love. So Rebecca is like the opposite of introvert. Rebecca is like an extrovert and like, oh my gosh, like the life of just like, like loves throwing parties and just loves being around people, very, very, very social. But I'm focusing on the narrator, who is the protagonist, who is opposite of Rebecca. And she is, you only know of her as Mrs. Maxim de Winter. You never learn her name. And so, like, forgive me because I actually read this a few years ago. It's actually a really, really great novel. But since I haven't read it in a while, everything I remember about her is that she is very much shy, very much an introvert, very much like, this has nothing to do with being an introvert, but she's also a people pleaser. She wants to just please her husband. She wants to please everyone. And she's like very, 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 in my mind, intimidated by Rebecca. It's a very, very interesting novel. And so, yeah, so like the narrator, like I said, is just very much an introvert, very shy, and just always comparing herself to Rebecca, which is a whole nother issue. But then yet again, I think like she just never feels like she can be as good as Rebecca. And I don't think that has anything to do with her being an introvert. I just think that comes along with it. Like she also is an introvert, very shy. But then again, she never would be like Rebecca because that's just not who she is. So yeah, like, but then when you learn things about Rebecca, you're like, yeah, okay, well, but yeah, I just loved it. So yeah, the narrator is an introvert. Okay, so the next one is Now this one's very similar to The Language of Flowers. I have a whole video on this book if you guys are interested. Not many people watch it. This is White Oleander by Janet Fitch. It's also one of my favorite books of all time. So Astrid is the protagonist, and she is very, I say with confidence. If I'm wrong, like according to the author. But everybody has their own opinions, but I think she's very much an introvert. She's very shy. So her mother's very confident, and I would say her mother's probably an introvert as well. But just even the way she interacts with her own mother, like, is very quiet, and like she's just very kind of like to herself. She likes to she'd rather kind of draw and just kind of hang out, like with she's good at, like, she likes talking one-on-one, like hanging out with people one-on-one, things like that, like, but she also has like trauma that that happens after the books gets kind of started, and like the trauma, I can't say if it changed or impacted the way she was before. I don't know if she's just genetically like that or whatever, just her personality, I mean, but like I definitely can see how the trauma would have made her more shy and like awkward, because the trauma, it's a lot. So I definitely think that she also falls into that category where she has like a lot of things happen to her that impact her, as we all do. Even extroverts, of course, in different ways. But for introverts, if you're already socially awkward or shy, and you have something, or you could probably be an extrovert and then become more introvert, become kind of shy and isolated with trauma. So you don't have to be, but if you're already introverted and things happen, I think you would become more shy into yourself, and I've seen that in my own life. But yeah, I think that's how she is, and she's a phenomenal character. She's so likable, and her life is so interesting, and you almost don't want the book to end. Now, this is another movie. It is phenomenal. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, I wanted to say The Goldfinch too. I didn't really love the movie. I'm just gonna say it. Yeah, The Goldfinch, and then Rebecca. I tried to watch the one that was on Netflix, and I did not like the casting. I really didn't feel like Mr. D. Winters. I really didn't feel like he really was what I pictured. And I thought the actress that played the narrator, the shy narrator, I thought she was okay, but it wasn't, I don't know, I just didn't click with it. I really didn't even finish it. And then, but this is a phenomenal film with Michelle Pfeiffer. She's the mom, and a bunch of other awesome actresses and people. Okay, so now I want to, before I talk about the last book, and I also have some movies for you guys that have, if you're interested, that have introverts and shy characters or loners. So before I talk about the last book, I want to say honorable mention, because I don't have the book with me, but it's called Convenience Store Woman, and it's about a protagonist who is a loner. She works at a convenience store, and her family wants her to be like kind of more like follow societal norms. It's like written by a Japanese author, and it's based in Japan, and it's a phenomenal book. I want to buy it for my collection, but I read it from the library. But she is very much a loner, and her family wants her to be like everyone else. I'll also link in the description. Her family wants her to be like everyone else, and like get married and have kids and be kind of like follow traditional social norms, and she doesn't want that. She just wants to do her thing. She loves working in the convenience store, and it's very refreshing. It's very refreshing to read a character like that. Same thing with Eleanor Oliphant, but they're both loners. I wouldn't say she's shy or introverted. I would just say she's like a loner. Okay, so now the last one. I just finished this book, and I was like, I have to include it in this video. It's called Eileen. And here's the author, Otessa, Moshfeghh. Now, one of the biggest loners I've ever read. Like, she is very much a loner. She is socially awkward. She has no issue speaking to people. So I'm not sure if, it's not that introverts, okay. You can be introverted and not be shy. Okay, what I'm trying to say is, like, I don't necessarily think she's shy. She has no trouble speaking to like strangers and starting conversations, kind of. but she really didn't have a lot of interest in wanting to do so. Like, she's just very, very awkward and very much a loner. Now, 100%, her family definitely, I think, added to why she is the way she is. Definitely she has some, like, very, like, what is what I'm looking for? Like, borderline, like, I would say abusive, like, with neglect, the way her family treated her. They kind of ignored her. She kind of feels invisible, literally, like, even now. Like, the book takes place where she's discussing her life from when she's, like, older, but then most of the book takes place when she's in her 20s. And she, at that point, she doesn't really have any friends. She doesn't really date. And she just kind of, like, I don't know, like, so she's just very much a loner. And this book is so interesting. But since this video is not really about the book review, it's just more about their character. But yeah, so I love her character and the fact that, again, it's very refreshing, kind of like convenience store woman. The fact that I like how the author just embraces the fact that she's a loner. She doesn't really try to change her. She wants to, like, she has interest in other people, but she just doesn't really make much of an effort to make relationships happen and things like that. And you can maybe say it could be because of her trauma, because she doesn't really know how to relate to other people and things like that. So I don't know if she's, like, happy being a loner. And I just read it, so I haven't really had a lot of time to marinate my thoughts about it. But she definitely is a loner. And I found it very, very, very interesting, and I plan to talk about it in the future. And so now I'm going to discuss some of my favorite movie introverts, or socially awkward people, or loners, or all of, one or two of those categories. So Wes Anderson, he has two movies. One is The Royal Tenenbaums and one is Rushmore. So The Royal Tenenbaums, I would say that Margot and Richie, I think, are a little bit introverted / shy, kind of loner types. And, Margot, she's adopted and she never really feels like a part of the family in a way. And the whole family is, like, dysfunctional. It's one of my favorite movies, The Royal Tenenbaums. So, like, you could say, yeah, like, I think Richie and Margot are both kind of that way. And for different reasons, and also I think that's why they relate to each other too, probably. But yeah, so, and then also Rushmore. So Rushmore, he's the main character. He's not shy. I would almost say he's an extrovert. But I would say he's a smidge of kind of like a loner and socially awkward. I wouldn't say that he's a loner by choice, because he does have friends. It's just a little bit. Like, I just wanted to include him because, like, he's not full on, like, I think what you described. He's definitely, like I said, he's not an introvert, he's not shy, but he's kind of, I think it's because he grew up poor, and he goes to this really wealthy private school, and he kind of feels like different, because he doesn't really, I don't think he really fits in 100%, because, like, a lot of the kids are rich. He tries really hard in academics. And so, yeah, it's just, he's kind of socially awkward. I just want to include him, but yeah. Okay. Adaptation is An Eternal Sunshine. Both were written by Charlie Kaufman. And I'll pretty much say almost every Charlie Kaufman film has a touch of this. But Adaptation, 100%, the lead character, who is played by Nicolas Cage, he is 100% just very much socially awkward. I don't know if you would put him in the introverted, extroverted, probably shy. So I would say probably he's introverted, but, like, he's very much, he has issues communicating with people, and, like, he's just, like, intimidated, and he's very much in his head, very much like Charlie Kaufman. And that movie is just so interesting. But yeah, I would say 100% I thought of him. And then also Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Jim Carrey, the character that he plays, he is very much shy. Joel, I think his name's Joel. He's very much an introvert, he likes to draw, and he's very quiet. He's totally opposite of Clementine, who becomes, like, his girlfriend in the movie, which is, she's extroverted, and she's, like, kind of loud. And, you know, he would rather kind of read or draw and kind of like chill by himself. And so he's also, they're opposites, but yeah, he's very much shy. And yeah. And so Garden State, it's written, directed by Zach Braff, and it also stars Zach Braff. And the character, the protagonist is, so Zach Braff, the main character, he's mildly shy. I don't think he's socially awkward, but I think he's like I said, like he comes across to me not full blown, but like a little bit like on the kind of shy, maybe a little bit introverted side. He has friends. He also has some trauma that happened to him when he's like a teenager. So you could say maybe that impacted the way he interacts with people. And he's kind of gone through a lot in the film, which you could also say. But I just wanted to include him because I did think of him. It's also all of these movies are like my favorite movie. I love Garden State. I watch Garden State all the time. So Emily is like the definition, I would say, of an introvert. I don't think I have to explain much about her. Like, we all know she's very much an introvert. She's very shy, very socially awkward. Yeah, I love her. So Punch Drunk Love, and the character that Adam Sandler plays, he's very socially awkward, very shy. He's a loner. He feels like lonely. He has issues communicating with people and things like that. He has anger issues because his family drives him crazy, and you can see why. And so the movie is very interesting. It's directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. I forgot who wrote it. Maybe he wrote it, but I think it's for sure it's directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. Not sure if he wrote, directed or not. I forgot. I apologize. But yeah, it's a really good movie, Punch Drunk Love. So Almost Famous is directed by directed by Cameron Crowe. And so the main protagonist, the character, when you first start watching the movie, he's pretty much stays the same age, but his name is slipping me. I should know his name. But the main character, who's like, I don't know, I'd say he's like 9th, 10th. He graduates early because he's like super smart. But say he's like 15. I think his name's William. So William, he kind of like he wants to be a writer, like a journalist, and he starts like following a band. And so he's very shy. I would say it also impacts him, the fact that he's held back. He skips grades. So he's like very young for the grade that he's in. So he doesn't really relate to his peers because they're all older than him. And he hasn't even barely reached puberty when you meet him, and he's with like older kids. So I think that definitely impacts the way he interacts with people. But yeah, he's awkward and he's shy, but he can communicate with people very well at certain points, he's not totally awkward. Like but I think he's very much an introvert, very much. The way he kind of would rather watch and be kind of on the sidelines. Kind of reminds me a little bit of another movie I have on here, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, Charlie. So The Perks of Being a Wallflower is a book, and then they made the movie based on the book. Now, I really didn't have success with the book. I DNF'd it. But the movie, I thought the writing was really good. It was just maybe because I saw the movie so many times. And the way it was written, like in a journal form, it just didn't work for me. But I love the movie, and I think it's one of the best characters ever written. Like, it's a really good character of Charlie, and he is 100% an introvert, 100% shy, all of that. He also has trauma in his life that you can see, I'm sure, impacted him. And the movie and the book is highly focused on his interaction with other people, and it's very much an exploration of his introvertedness, his shyness, and him kind of coming out of his shell. So another one is about a boy. Let me try to speed this up. It's with Hugh Grant. And so Hugh Grant is the extrovert. It's not him, but it's the boy who is like, his name's Marcus. So he's very shy and kind of awkward. And he's kind of a loner, but not by choice. For him, also, it's because, like, you could tell, I don't know, he just like, he doesn't really connect with his peers for different reasons. And you kind of see why in the movie because of, like, the way he's raised and, like, I don't know. But yeah, he's very much a shy introvert. So Greenberg, and then The Squid and the Whale, both written and directed by Noah Bromovich, if I'm saying that correctly, incorrectly, I apologize. So Greenberg is about, so it's with Ben Stiller, and he just got out of like a mental institution or a mental facility. So he basically is going through a lot of stuff mentally, but he's very socially awkward. He's very, I don't know if he's an introvert or really necessarily like super shy, but he's just awkward, and like he has social anxiety, in my opinion, because I have social anxiety too. There's a scene where he's staying at his brother's house, I believe, and they have a pool, and his brother's out of town, so he's kind of house sitting. And there's these people, his brother's friends they just kind of let them come over whenever they want. So he kind of like notices that all these people are outside in his backyard, his brother's backyard. And he's like, oh my, like, he's like, he doesn't know how to handle it. Like I'm the same way. Like, he's like it totally was off-putting to him. And then they tell him, that his brother lets them go over and swim. And then he kind of like tries to like, I'm sorry if I'm saying this incorrectly. I saw the movie. It's been like at least 2 years. But then he starts to bring out all this food like on a platter like to them, but then he like, I don't know, like he's just so awkward, like he doesn't know how to interact with them. And like I definitely relate to that. Like I'm the same way. Like, and you could tell like he wants to just be there alone. Like he doesn't want them there, but then he doesn't want to be rude. And of course it's not his house anyway, so he can't. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, so it's like you learn how to like kind of be like a chameleon if you have social anxiety, and kind of like interact with other people, even though it's really hard. And he is like one of the biggest definitions of, yeah, very much. I loved him as a character. He's very unlikable, but then you kind of feel for him, in my opinion. So then The Squid and the Whale is also the same writer-director. The Squid and the Whale is like also like a coming-of-age movie. It's about a boy and his family. It's like a teenage boy, and he's shy. And he doesn't really have a lot of friends. He doesn't really have, like, he's not real good at, like, interacting with girls and things like that. And, like, his father is definitely very charming, very extroverted and things like that. But, like, he doesn't really relate to him that much. It's not because of that, but just because his dad's kind of self-centered and things like that. But it's kind of like just, yeah, I just thought of him. But yeah, so if that's enough rambling, I don't know what it is. So I think that's enough rambling. So I'm going to end the video. Thank you so much if you've watched to this point. I really appreciate it. I'd love for you to subscribe. If you haven't already, if you have, thank you. And I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Bye.